This isn't my war.
I fear it soon will be.
Time to lay down some whoop ass.
Transformers.
Hold those. I am directly below. Enemy scrotum. Get the fuck out of here. What the fuck? So we've made it up to Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, which is a movie I actually did not like as a kid when I first saw it. There were very real issues that I had with it as a kid. Can you imagine like a 10-year-old me watching this movie, just picking out all the things that I genuinely did not like about it? But I then had a time period where I liked it for a bit. You know, I saw the things in it that actually kind of worked for me. And now I'm just like kind of in the middle. I've had a love-hate relationship with this movie ever since it came out. And I've noticed I've become more mellow as I've gotten older, which sounds like I'm 80 or whatever. But I really just want to watch movies now to enjoy them. Where when I was in my teens, I was very critical of things. Things just stuck out in my mind and they just wouldn't rest. Now, I look at this movie and there are things that I actually do genuinely like about it as a Transformers fan. But as a film buff, it's not a good movie. The first thing that I absolutely hated about this movie, and I did notice, this is one of the things that I noticed as a kid watching it, is the fact that it reuses so much footage from the movies before, but this movie itself, it reuses like the same shot minutes apart. The biggest example of this is that government dick who comes in to yell at Optimus and Major Lennox about why the Decepticons are still here.
Now, under the Classified Alien Autobot Cooperation Act, you agreed to share your intel with us, but not... I feel like something's coming. So let me ask, if we ultimately conclude that our national security is best served by denying you further asylum...
Just yourself, go through the movie if you haven't been looking that closely at it. Go through the movie and watch how many times they actually use shots from, like reuse shots from this movie itself, but also the previous movie, the first Transformers movie in 2007. Also, I hate Sam's whole time in college. His roommate Leo and his parents, with his mum running around the college campus like a fucking idiot because she's high on weed brownies.
Wait, you over here? I can eat all the freaking brownies I want!
I don't know what to say. It's not funny at all. It's just annoying. I said in my first review that there are comedic moments in the first Transformers movie that worked, but they weren't, personally in my opinion, they weren't overdone. The comedy in this movie is very... I'll get to it in a minute, but it's just too much. And I feel like I have to clarify in this review what I actually like versus what I don't like, because it can get a bit muddled, because I did say I don't like Sam's time in college here. If they had done it differently, then maybe I would have. I'm not opposed to having Sam be in college in a Transformers movie. It's just how they did it for this one, I didn't like at all. So I like Sam, but everything around him, especially his roommate and his parents, I do not like. Especially Mudflap and Skids, the two Autobot twins in this movie. What the fuck? These two are the most racist, vulgar, and inappropriate characters that I've ever seen in a movie. Like, honestly, like I've never seen two characters in a movie that I've hated more. Which brings me to my biggest problem with this movie, and it's that it's way too vulgar. Like the twins, the comedy just goes way too far in so many places. It's like the twins, it's racist, it's vulgar, it's inappropriate, and there are so many jokes like that. So here is every inappropriate, vulgar, and potentially racist joke in the entire movie in order. Suck my popsicle. Dad slapping mum's ass. Dogs fucking. More dogs fucking. Don't be sucking the sack, bro. The ball sack. Sam's professor. That whole character is a creep. Not to mention, he's been a creep in front of the dean. How does a professor like this get away with that? Mudflap and Skids popping caps in asses. Mudflap and Skids can't read What the wheelie humping Michaela's leg, Jetfire farts, Devastator's balls, as I showed earlier. By the way, how is this Devastator? In the first movie, the tank, who is actually called Brawl, but in the movie was called Devastator. And in this movie, we have another Decepticon also called Devastator. They can't even name the Decepticons properly? What the hell? So that's all the things that I really hate about this movie, and there are other things, but we'll get to them in a little bit. One of the things I actually like is John Turturro's character, which I understand contradicts what I said in my review for the first movie, but John Turturro's involvement in the story for this movie, I think, is actually warranted and pretty interesting, because if they had introduced John Turturro's character in this movie and not had him in the first movie, then maybe John Turturro's involvement in these movies would have been far more interesting. As this ex-government agent that's come from a disgraced department of the government that no longer exists anymore, and Sam having to go to him in his most desperate time of need, I actually think that's pretty interesting. But I have to stipulate, not his ass. I didn't ask for that. No one asked for that. Speaking of the story, it is pretty good in my opinion as a story written for a Transformers movie. I have no problems with the story for this movie. It's very simple, it's very easy to follow, and it's very much a Transformers story. My only problem with the story is this one little aspect of it, and it's about the Fallen and how strong he is compared to his brothers, the Primes, and the fact that only a Prime can defeat him. But in the movie, we get told that only a Prime can defeat the Fallen. Yet later in the movie, when Jetfire is explaining the history of the Transformers to us, and Sam and the others, he says that the Fallen was stronger than his brothers. So then how can only a Prime defeat him if the Fallen is stronger than his brothers? Also, how can the Fallen only be defeated by a Prime when Megatron killed Optimus? None of that makes any goddamn sense at all. Anyway, that was another problem that I had with it. A tiny problem, but, overall the story is very simple to follow and entertaining as a Transformers fan. I have to be honest. There are scenes that are, for me, memorable, like the scene where Soundwave sends Ravage. First time we get to see Ravage in the franchise, and then Ravage sends something else, which is a bit silly, but ultimately they're infiltrating this military base to get the last shard of the Allspark to revive Megatron. And I liked it. As a kid, and now I'm looking at it thinking, holy shit, the Decepticons really can do whatever the fuck they want, and no one's gonna stop them. I love that idea about the Decepticons, the fact that they can just infiltrate anything. Also, when Megatron is revived and returns to Cybertron, we get to see a bit more of why the Decepticons, need Energon. And if you're looking at the G1 cartoon, it was always just to have power, to rule, basically, take over the universe. Very, very cut and dry motivations. But for this movie, they actually, for a brief scene, show you, no, they actually need it to survive. Their race will not survive without Energon. So I like that they imply they actually need it to survive. It's a very clever way to go about their motivations. And also, Optimus dies in this movie, which as a kid destroyed me. And the forest battle that led up to Optimus's death was every bit as epic as you could ever ask for from a Transformers movie. It was awesome. Also, I'll say this about the third act for this movie. There's actually build-up. There's a scene between Sam and his parents that actually, on rewatch, kind of guts you. Because there is lead up to it at the beginning of the movie with Sam going off to college, and then this scene in the middle of the third act where Sam's father doesn't want to let him go. But at the beginning of the movie, the roles were reversed, and Sam's mother didn't want to let him go, and he was trying to convince her to let him go. But now, in this huge battle between the Autobots and Decepticons, the roles are reversed. Mum is trusting Sam, and the dad is trying to hold on to him. It's a scene with, real acting in it. What a surprise for a movie like this. And every time I watch this movie, and I have rewatched it quite a bit because I am a Transformers nerd. When the Fallen comes to turn the machine on and he takes the Matrix away from Optimus, and they are literally, the Decepticons are literally seconds away from winning using this machine that is essentially the Soul and Needle from season 2, episode 7 of the G1 cartoon. Yes, I know my Transformers shit. And everyone just starts firing everything at the Fallen, and he just deflects it all. He picks everything up like it's fucking nothing. The movie that we all wanted is in here. Anyway, that's my thoughts on Revenge of the Fallen. I guess I have had a love-hate relationship with it, as I said, and now my final consensus on the movie is that, you know, I hate it, but I also kind of love it. And I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as people say it is. It's just the really bad parts of it stick out like a sore thumb. Anyway, I will see you in my review for Dark of the Moon. I cannot wait to talk about that one because that is actually one of, if not my favorite Transformers movie so far. I'm not kidding you.
I am Optimus Prime. We have brought our war to your world, and the Decepticons have grown more powerful. But your sworn Autobot protectors stand ready for the fight. Even as our nemesis Megatron returns from the shadows, it is time to stand with us and prove there is more to you than meets the eye.
Transformers figures each sold separately. Actual change time may vary.
Transformers.